So the book of Revelation is a book that promises what? Anybody knows, just to kind of, anyone knows it promise? Anyone that reads it and hears it and keeps it. Good job. Right on. Who can tell me what verse the outline in the book of Revelation, what verse it is that tells us the divine outline of the book of Revelation? Anyone knows the verse? How about the chapter? Chapter. Raise your hand. Chapter. Just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Robert. Chapter 1. What verse? Anyone knows? Verse 19. Yes. Right on. And which verse or which chapter deals with the things that have already happened, the things which are past? Anyone knows what that is? What chapter in the divine outline deals with the things that were? Anyone knows? Brian James, you know? Jason. Chapter 1. Okay, who knows what chapters deal with the things which are? Chapters what? 2 and 3. And what does Jesus, or what does he tell us, or what does he teach us in chapter 2 and 3? It's all about the what? It's all about the church. This is the smart section right here. It's all about the church, the 7 churches of Asia Minor. That's the things which are. We are now in the church age. You remember the prophecy, the 70-week prophecy in the book of Daniel? Is the church in that prophecy? No, it is not. Where is the church when it comes to the prophecy of the 70 weeks of Daniel? No, nope. When is it in that particular prophecy of Daniel? The church isn't in the prophecy. Where is the church according to that prophecy? What was that? Between the 69th and 70th week, which we say is a gap. There's a gap between the 69th and 70th week, because that prophecy will take you from the building of the walls in Nehemiah's day all the way to Messiah the Prince. And that takes you, of course, to April 6, A.D. 32, the day that he presented himself, what we would call the triumphal entry. He presented himself as Messiah. And then it says it takes you to the time Messiah the Prince, and then it says that he shall be cut off. And that talks about the crucifixion. And so he was presented as Messiah, and they rejected him, so he was crucified. Then it says the Antichrist is going to make a covenant with many for 1 week, that's 7 years. So from the time the Messiah is cut off, and then there's going to be the covenant that the Antichrist makes, it's not right after, and we know that there, even in the prophecy, there's a division between the 69th and 70th week, because he specifically singles out the 70th week and says that he, the Antichrist, is going to make a covenant with Israel for 1 week, which is, we know that each day represents a year, not like how our weeks is just, there's a week is 7 days. This is a week is 7 years. So he's going to make a covenant with them for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he's going to break the covenant. And so what is the middle of 7? 3.5, correct. So in the middle of the week, 3.5 years, he is going to break the covenant. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? So you can look at, when you're talking about prophecy, you don't just go to the book of Revelation. The Bible is the best commentary on itself. You're going to go to the book of Revelation. You're going to go to the book of Daniel. Just swallow something wrong. Don't panic. You cough nowadays, everybody freaks out, yeah? Even the ones online panicking right now, coughing. You go to the book of Zechariah. You're going to go to the book of Ezekiel. You're going to look at all these books that deal with prophecy. In fact, there's a section of the Old Testament. It's called the Minor prophets? The major prophets. It's prophecy. It's lumped together in a section. That's why they call it the minor prophet section and the major prophets and the minor prophets, and that's the remaining portion of the Old Testament. Anyway, so during that 70-week prophecy, or the 70-week prophecy of Daniel, at the beginning of that prophecy, and it's in your notes because I had the verse in there. It says 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. What people? Israel. Prophecy is centered on Israel. If you get Israel wrong, you will get prophecy wrong. There are a lot of people that thinks and they believe in replacement theology, and so then they don't believe that they believe that the church replaces Israel, and so now their prophecy is all diluted and it's all messed up. And usually most of them are all millennialists. We are not all millennialists. We are pre-millennialists. What does that mean? We take Revelation literal. We believe prophecy is for us to point people to Christ because we know what's going to happen in the future. So it says 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, that's Israel, and upon the holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness. So this prophecy is going to take you from that day it's going to start. There's a starting point of this prophecy. It's in the days of Nehemiah for the commandment to rebuild the walls, right? From that point on, there's going to be a specific time period that's going to take you all the way to the bringing in of everlasting righteousness. That means the title deed is reclaimed. That means the debt has been paid, and it's been paid by Jesus Christ. The title deed is reclaimed by Jesus Christ, where we are going to rule and reign with him. Remember that Adam and Eve, when Adam is in the garden, he was given that opportunity. He was placed in the Garden of Eden, and he was given dominion over it, and he forfeited it. So the way it was back then when he forfeited it, in a sense, is the way it's going to be in the millennial kingdom, where they walked with God in the garden, right? We're going to be with him forever and ever. It's going to be back to its Edenic type of conditions. And Adam, who lost it, now Jesus Christ is the second Adam, and he's going to reclaim it. But in between, before he reclaims it, the scroll has to be rolled out, and the list stated of the payment that has to be paid and the things that have to happen, and that's the tribulation period. Once that's done, we're going to see in the end of the tribulation period in chapter 19, then it's going to be the millennial kingdom. So that's what we're talking about. So this prophecy takes you all the way from the commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem. That's in verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. So a score is 20. 3 scores how much? 60. 2 weeks makes it how much? 62 plus the 7 weeks. So that makes it how much? 69. So 60 plus 2, and it's also given a division of the 49 years or the 7 weeks. For whatever reason, he singles that part out. The rebuilding of the wall took that long. And so, but altogether, it takes you from that commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto Jesus comes is going to be 69 weeks. And he's going to be cut off. And then there's the church age. How long does the church age last? Anybody knows? It has been that, but it's lasted 2,000 plus years. But when is it going to end? What date? Anybody knows? Someone online got their hands raised now. At the rapture. Good answer. We don't know when it's going to end, but we know it's going to end with the rapture. If you take the book of Revelation literal, you have a rapture in it. Chapter 2 and 3 is about the what? Church. Who can tell me for a fake gift of $100? Who can tell me for 100 Bible bucks that Pastor Mark will give you at the next Vacation Bible School? What chapter speaks of the rapture in Revelation? Raise your hand. Other than Robert. What chapter? Come on, people. Raise your hand. Okay, wait. Raise your hand. What answer? What is the answer? Chapter 4. What verse? Other than Bible college students. What verse? What verse? Bella? Verse 1. Oh, yeah. Chapter 4, verse 1. Come up hither. Right? And so from chapter 4 and 5, we're in the throne room, right? Church is up here on earth. Meanwhile, back on planet Earth. Chapter 6 through 19. So the church age, chapter 2 and 3, is basically a period of time we don't know when it's going to end. But it ends at the rapture. After the rapture, what event is going to start the tribulation? Anyone knows? What's going to start it other than Robert? Anyone knows? What's going to start the tribulation period? What event? What's going to happen? What the so-and-so is going to do with what? Nope, that ends it. That concludes it. What begins it? What event's going to happen? Someone's going to do something, and that's going to start the clock ticking, the prophetic clock. What's that? Raise your hand. The Antichrist is going to make a covenant with Israel, a 7-year covenant. Correct. Pretty good for a Barrington graduate. I usually say Antichrist, not Antichrist, because it makes it seem like he's an anti. But and then there's an uncle. No, but that's true. Very good. I can't give a full-fledged compliment. No, come on. Okay, so that's the 70 week of. Now I'm going this over and over and over this again because we need to know this for prophecy. You need to know the 70-week prophecy of Daniel is the most powerful and important prophecy in the Bible because it covers, the whole span of time, and then it spells out what's going to happen during the tribulation period. The Antichrist is going to make a covenant with Israel for 7 years. In fact, Jeremiah, I believe it's Jeremiah that refers to this as the covenant. Anyone knows what it's called? The covenant with death and the covenant with hell. Okay, so after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and until the end of the war, desolations are determined. And so the Messiah was cut off, not for himself, because he was crucified for us. And then the people of the prince, that's talking about the Romans, they destroy the temple. They destroy Jerusalem. They destroy the temple. And then it says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. You got your notes out? You see that? Daniel chapter 9? And right now on the notes part, Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. He's going to stop temple worship. And he's going to go into the temple. And he's going to set up himself to be worshiped. Jesus calls that the abomination of desolation. And then from that point on to the rest of the tribulation period, it's going to be very bad. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, that's the very end, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, so now we are on the second seal. We are on chapter 6, verse 3, the red horse. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. Power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. So peace is taken. And they that should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So the writer doesn't need to bring war and destruction. All he needs to do is take peace away. Now, remember what I said this morning? That what we're going to talk about is what event. Now, I'm not saying this dogmatically. I'm not saying 100% for sure, but a lot of people, a lot of theologians believe that this could be the case, and this may be the event that brings the Antichrist to Jerusalem. Now, remember, he makes a peace treaty with them, right? A covenant. So he's saying, I'll protect you. Someone messes with you, they mess with me. I'll back you up. No one does that with Israel hardly nowadays, right? So the Antichrist is going to do that. So there's going to be a war. Some people believe that this war is going to happen right around the midpoint of the tribulation period. We don't know for sure, but we know that there's a peace, right? A peace, a false sense of peace. Can you show that horse with the second horse on there? I just want to see him. There, no. That's the third horse. There, yes. That's the second seal. That's what he's going to look like too, right there. It's kind of ugly looking. His horse looks weird too. So remember, there's peace, right? A false sense of peace, and then now there's going to be war. Peace will be taken away. Some people believe this could be the Ezekiel 38-39 war. So turn to Ezekiel 38. I'm not going to go through the whole thing for the sake of time. Ezekiel 38, it says, are you there yet? Not yet? Okay. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, something, Ezekiel. Daniel is after Ezekiel. Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Joel, Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. This is modern-day Russia. And the chief prince of Meshech, some people believe this is Moscow, and Tubal, Turkey, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech, and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses with horsemen. Do you know Russia is one of the few armies that still uses horses? All of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Iran, Ethiopia, northern Africa area, and Libya, that same region. With them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer, parts of Turkey, and all his bands. I think actually Gomer is southern Russia area. Togarma, Turkey. And all his bands, the house of Togarma of the north quarters. And all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee. And be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword. The land that is brought back, the land there was so much fighting over Israel all of these years, and now it's brought back. 1948, they became a nation again. And is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations. There were Jews scattered throughout the world to almost every single nation of the world, and they are brought back. And they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind. Thou shalt think an evil thought, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. Now, I went to Israel twice, and I never had any fear. I'm telling you, when we went to Israel, you hear how dangerous it is, right? Some people don't want to go because it's so dangerous. When we went to Israel, our guide said, you will not find it to be the way you've heard it to be. When you go to Jerusalem, I mean, all over Israel, with the exception of being near Gaza or in the northern area, Syria, or, you stay away from those because that's where the missiles are flying in, right? But aside from that, even then, they intersect all the missiles, the Iron Dome of Israel. The ones that they don't intersect, a lot of times they see it as it's not going to hit anything anyway, so let it go. But he said this, would you let your children play in the streets? Or, well, not in the streets, but, would you let them go out into the neighborhoods in, let's say, any of the modern main cities of the United States, like Chicago or L.A., at midnight? No. We wouldn't even let them out there at 6 o'clock. He says, you can let your children play outside at midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning in any major city of Israel, including Jerusalem, and they will be perfectly safe. You wouldn't have to fear them being kidnapped or harmed in any way. He said, I promise you. Do you know what? I felt like that. I mean, I didn't have my children with me. Not that I would have let, Of course, Casey can take care of himself. But we went out and we went walking around, the person that I was with, Pastor Paul, we went walking around Israel, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, probably 12:30. We just walked around, tried to go to the darkest alleys or whatever. We did not one time feel unsafe. Of course, Pastor Paul's like 6'4", but he's a big guy. But even outside of that, I remember doing that, and I remember walking the streets of Chicago with August, who's a big guy. And I remember walking in L.A. We heard a sound like this, "Pah!" And everybody ducked, and we're like, everyone around us that lives there just ducked. And this was like 2, 3 in the afternoon. We didn't go walking around too much after that in L.A., near L.A. But in Israel, it's totally safe. And the people there feel safe. Now, it wasn't that this way a little while ago. We went to this one place. It's like a downtown, like if you're in downtown Honolulu. We went to a place that was that type of place in Israel. It was a real fun place to be. You had people doing like a lot of you had some Orthodox Jews playing music. They had all their Orthodox garb on. And they were playing music, like they had like an organ, and they were playing different instruments, and they were dancing. And there were people just dancing right around at the area right in town square, like in the center. And they were all dancing and laughing and having fun. No one was fighting. No one was, like in Hawaii, you go to a gathering, and pretty soon you're like, what? Wait, what? And you got all people fighting. No one was fighting. Everyone was having a good time. The children were playing and laughing. And I thought, man, this is so neat to see this. You had all of these restaurants and the sidewalks, and people were sitting outside of the restaurant. It was a nice evening. The weather was nice. And people it just had a good spirit. I mean, you had, Jews, you had Palestinians, you had different ethnic groups, and everyone just was having a great time. And so we met somebody there that was from there. He was actually a Ethiopian Jew. And he was telling us that years ago there's been a lot of bombings over here, but now it's not like that. And yeah, we haven't had anything like that. They started taking some certain safety precautions, and now it was very safe. And you could tell everyone felt safe. So I can see what it's saying in a way here. That is, people feel safe. When you walk in the old Jerusalem town, you'll see a lot of the police, they're loaded down. They got big guns, they got guns all over them. and they're just marching around. There's not going to be any mass shootings. It's going to be very short-lived. If someone, because they're just, and then a lot of people, you have people open carry. I mean, I don't know what all the rules are there, but we saw people carrying. And it's just it just feels safe. So it says in Ezekiel 38, if you go to, where was I? Oh yeah, verse 11. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods and dwell in the midst of the land. Now, Israel is a rich country right now, a very wealthy country. Militarily, they have one of the top militaries in the world. Like at least they're in the top 5, I believe. And they're, economically, I mean, they're one of the wealthiest nations in the world. They export more flowers, or at least in the top 2 or 3. They're the highest exporters of flowers to Europe, and they're just a country the size of Colorado, and not just flowers, but also fruits and vegetables. I mean, they produce. I think they're one of the top 3 or 4 producers of fruits and vegetables in Europe. I mean, they're a very wealthy, abundant country. God has definitely blessed them. What's going to happen? Okay, now, you remember before, you're thinking that if Israel is God's chosen people, and you have all of these countries around about them that have so much oil, right? Yeah, and yet Israel doesn't seem like they have that much oil. Well, guess what? A few years ago, they discovered a whole bunch of natural gas and oil in the Mediterranean on their side, on their area. They've got so much oil, they don't even know what to do with it. They have a lot. So right now, as we speak, they've made an agreement with Egypt and Saudi Arabia and other countries that these countries who get their oil from Russia. Now, Russia's main export is oil. And if they are not able to sell their oil, then they are going to go broke. I mean, they are going to have some significant economic problems. Big time. And a lot of the battles that go on in that area of the world is over oil. And who gets to sell it and who's buying it and this and that. So Israel is now they're making a pipeline that's supposed to be completed. It's supposed to be completed in 2025. Now it's extended, I think, to 2027. But they're making this pipeline. They're already selling, exporting this oil, but they're making this pipeline that is going to go directly to Egypt and to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia right now, even though they're Islamic, they are pretty cool with Israel. They even wished them happy Hanukkah this past year, maybe a couple years already. So they already have a good relationship, better than before. So they're starting to make these trade deals because they know that whoever has a good dealings with Israel, they're always better off. And if you look at Jordan is starting to make some agreements with Israel, and Israel is teaching them some of the things that they do, when it comes to tourism, when it comes to extracting some natural resources out of the Dead Sea and other things. So if Israel is able to, and not only that, a lot of this oil is going to be exported to Europe. Who do you think supplies Europe with a lot of this oil? It's Russia. So Russia is going to be very upset if now all Israel has to do is say, well, how much is Russia selling the oil for? Well, we can sell it to you a whole lot cheaper. Do you think Russia is going to sit back? Just let that happen? So something is going to cause them to want to come down and invade Israel. Now, we've always backed Israel. With President Trump, he was one of the he was a president that was a friend to Israel. And he probably backed Israel more than most presidents of the United States have. And Benjamin Netanyahu said that. He was one of the greatest friends of Israel than any other president. But he's no longer the president. And we know that right now we're starting to not be so friendly with Israel as we used to be. I know Obama wasn't, President Obama. But so something it says like hooks in their jaws is going to bring them down. And it says in verse 12, to take a spoil. Take off the S and the P. What you got? Oil. It could be that they're coming for the oil. To take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations. They're all scattered. Now they're in Israel again, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan. That's, Sheba is Ethiopia or Yemen, and Dedan is Saudi Arabia, unto the merchants of Tarshish, Spain, and Europe area, with all the young lions thereof. Actually, Tarshish could be England, and the young lions could be us. We don't know. Shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? These are the only countries that are going to question. Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? So they protested, but nobody did anything. Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, thus saith the Lord God, in that day, when my people of Israel dwell safely, shalt thou know it. And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty. Thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days. And I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. Thus saith the Lord God, art thou he of whom I have spoken in old time by my servants, the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days, many years, that I would bring thee against them? And it shall come to pass at the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come upon my face. So there's going to be a northern coalition of the nations that I just mentioned. There's going to be a southern coalition. A lot of people believe that this is going to be a lot of the Islamic countries, like Turkey, like Northern Africa, like Iran. And they're going to come together against Israel for the spoil. For, of course, you know, a lot of these Islamic countries want to destroy Israel. And God is going to supernaturally destroy this army. It says, for in my jealousy, verse 19, and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in the day that there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field and all creeping things that creep upon the earth and all the men that are upon the face of the earth shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every one shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. And he is going to destroy these nations, and that's it. Some people believe that this will be the end of Islam, because the ones that remain are going to understand that they had this jihad and all of that, and they were defeated, and they were destroyed. And so a lot of them are going to turn their eyes, they're going to turn to the Lord. Maybe so. So it says in chapter 39 that these nations are going to be, and for the sake of time, I'll just tell you, chapter 39, these nations are going to be destroyed, and it's talking about cleanup, and a lot of the descriptions in this cleanup, it almost seems like there's nuclear fallout. Could this be a nuclear war, that Israel sends nuclear missiles, and they're just destroyed, and then the fallout, because the way they clean it up, they have to put a sign there, and then the people that have the garb on to deal with it, they put a sign that there's a body here, and they would clean it. And so it's going to be a long time period to clean everything up. So this battle right here, remember now, when these nations come against Israel, who's the ally? So the beast, the Antichrist, he is the head of the revived Roman Empire. In Daniel, in the book of Daniel, in the statue with the 10 toes, it's a revived Roman Empire that will be headed up by the Antichrist. So Rome, remember Rome was a world ruler when Jesus was on this earth, and then of course Rome got defeated by the all these barbaric tribes like the Goths, the Visigoths, and the Lombards, and all these Viking tribes came, and before you know, Rome had fallen, and so Rome has not been, there hasn't been a world power in that same way since Rome, but there's going to be a revived Roman Empire that's going to be headed up by the Antichrist. So now the Antichrist and his armies are going to protect Israel because they made that covenant. So when these armies come against Israel, they're coming too. That's what I believe is going to bring the Antichrist to Jerusalem. This event. And of course, they're going to be all defeated. And so now you got the Antichrist there. And it's at this time, a lot of people believe, like I said, I don't want to be too dogmatic, but he's going to be there in Israel, and that's when he is going to turn on them. Now, one more verse, and then we'll finish this outline here. Or one more passage. Daniel chapter 11. It speaks of something, and this may be what it's referring to. Daniel 11. Daniel 11, verse 40. Daniel 11, verse 40 says, and at the time of the end shall the king of the south, this coalition of nations, push at him, and the king of the north, Gog and Magog, shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. He shall also enter into the glorious land. That's Israel. So this could be that same event, but talking about the Antichrist moving in, and many countries shall be overthrown, like what happened in Ezekiel 38 and 39, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make a way. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. He sets up his shop. He sets up his fort, I guess you could say, in Israel. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So this could be speaking of the Antichrist coming to Israel and setting up there. And he hears of these armies from the east. That could be China. We know in Revelation there is going to be this army from the east coming this way, but they're hindered by the Euphrates River, and they're trying to think about how to get around it with their huge army. Do you know right now in China they have 100 million soldiers that can be ready at a moment's notice? And they're going to be marching their way, and it talks about this in Israel, and then the Euphrates River is going to be dried up. And then they're going to just march right across. And they're going to be coming to Israel to the plain of Megiddo. This is where the beast is. All these other armies, and when these armies, Gog and Magog, and the southern coalition of nations are destroyed, either supernaturally or how it describes here, it could be from nuclear fallout or whatever, it's going to create that vacuum, and then all these other countries are going to be attracted to come there, and they are going to attack Israel. Israel's going to be a super world power at the time, and they have an ally with the Antichrist, but then the Antichrist is going to turn on them. And all these countries are coming together for the last and final conflict. So that is what this could be talking about. He promised peace, but what happened? War. How many people are going to die? 2 billion people. That's a lot of people that's going to die during this time period, during the tribulation. More is going to, but at this time it talks about that many. So, this is the red horse. Now, the third seal, it's a black horse. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And behold, and lo, a black horse, and him that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. That's scales, a pair of balances. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny. A penny, that's speaking of a day's wage. A day's wage for a measure of wheat. You work all day just so you could feed your family one meal. Now, how much do you think it's going to cost to feed your family for a meal? A cheap meal, like oatmeal. Is oatmeal? That's not wheat, yeah? Cream of wheat. Or what is, I don't know. How much do you think it would cost to feed your family cream of wheat for one meal? How much? But how much would that cost in money-wise? $5? $10? Now, if you were going to hire somebody, let's say an average worker's daily wage, someone's going to do a job or whatever, somebody that's skilled or makes decent money, how much do they make a day? I would say about $200 a day. Can you imagine spending $200 to feed your family cream of wheat? That's how bad it's going to be. You know, we were at the store. I forget what store it was. Yesterday I went to so many stores. It's a world's record for me to go to that many stores in one day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 or 7 stores we went to. I mean, some of them I just say, I'll drop you off and I'll pick you up when you're done. I didn't technically go into all these stores, but anyway. One of the stores we went to, we seen someone that had like tons and tons of toilet paper. And Roxanne was like, man, why do I have so much toilet paper? I said, because, you know, of all the stuff's going on, that's the first thing. Like, you know, instead of grabbing food or important food, people grab toilet paper. So, why? I'm not sure, but anyway, so toilet paper's going, right? In this day, I mean, we stress out about toilet paper. Can you imagine stressing out about just having food and having just the basic, simplest types of food so you can feed your family one meal? So what happens after war? Famine. So that's what the black horse pictures. So it says, a black horse, a pair of balances, is going to be weighed out. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. Now, that's real cheap food. That's like what the animals eat. That's like you want to eat dog food. You know, I can get so much more dog food for a cheaper price. Can you imagine wanting to eat dog food? You know, I feed my dogs almost every day. Sometimes Casey will feed them. There's not one time ever in my career of feeding dogs that I ever thought, I wish I could eat this. How about you? No? But during this time period, it's going to be such a scarcity of food. People are going to want to eat what the animals eat. But then it says, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. That's what the rich people got. The rich people's stuff are not affected. See how there's a different class system? You notice how when those legislators from Texas were riding in a plane, none of them had masks on? You notice how at Obama's party, if you see pictures of it, nobody had masks. There's a different rule. Do you know in the mandates for the vaccine, it says that all the city workers have to be vaccinated by a certain date and all. I know right now they're going through, you know, I don't know if they're still trying to push it or if they changed the date or whatever. But where it talks about the people that are mandated, do you know who it excludes? Elected officials. It doesn't apply to them. See, there's a different class system. That's one of the biggest problems with, among a lot of things, with communism. They say, oh, common for everyone, everybody can have the same. Oh, but then you got the upper echelon, the ones making all the rules. Oh, they're living in luxury. Corruption. A lot of the countries that are very poor have leaders who are very rich. The oil and the wine is not affected during these wars. There's someone else pushing the buttons. You know, a lot of times these wars that are going on, you got these people that are not sending their children to war. They're not fighting the wars themselves. They're creating all these wars, and all kind of people are dying and being affected, and they're in the back there just kind of making money. It's a very sick world that we live. And a lot of these wars are being fought just for people to get richer and richer, and they could care a less about the people that are dying. And that's what's going to happen in this time too. Hurt not the oil and the wine. Rich people's stuff is not affected. They just keep getting richer and richer. If you were to look, I don't want to, maybe I won't tell you this, but I'm going to anyway. If you were to look at the amount of billionaires there are in this world now as compared to before the pandemic, it'll blow your mind. There was only, I think, one person that was close to $100 billion. There's like 6 now that have over $100 billion. The amount of billionaires has increased big time. Boom. People are struggling financially. People are losing their jobs. But the rich, the upper echelon, they keep getting richer and richer and richer. Follow the money in all of this, and you will have a lot of answers. Follow the money. How do those in Congress who make, couple, 200,000-300,000 a year, have hundreds of millions of dollars in their banks? There's no way they could have made that just with their job. Follow the money. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on here. It just gets worse and worse. Do you know that these horsemen, maybe I'll read this last. Yeah, I won't go into it now. I'll read this last. The 4th seal, verse 7. And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. In fact, this word pale, it kind of means sickly, or this color is actually like a green. You ever see that picture of what is it called? Emojis? Emojis, is that what they're called? Emojis? The emojis. Anyway, you see the green one or the yellow one and it vomits green? He's sick, right? That's the color of the horse. That sick color. A pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death and Hell. Death and hell followed with him. Power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth to kill with the sword and with hunger and with death and with the beasts of the earth. The 4th part of the earth. So you have the Antichrist promising a false peace, but they don't really get peace. He promises peace, but he delivers war. Just like the prodigal son. He wanted prime rib. It's almost like the devil is dangling the prime rib, just like he did to Eve, right? He's telling her that if she eats of this fruit, she's going to know good and evil. She's going to be like God. And he promises that you're going to expand your horizons. And when she partook of it, she fell into sin. And he promised, and the prodigal son is probably dangling prime rib. You're going to be eating prime rib. He promises prime rib, but he gives him pig slop. He promises peace, but he delivers war. He's a deceiver. We need to remember that about sin. It's deceptive. Just like Samson sitting at the feet of Delilah and thinking that she actually loves him and she's trying to kill him. And he puts his head in her lap. And pretty soon he's what? Dead. So we see false peace. Then we see war. Then we see famine. Then we see death. And then we see hell. A 4th part. There are almost 8 billion people out there today in the world. Like 7.8 billion people. By this time, who knows how, it's probably going to be about 8 billion or so, one fourth. That's 200 billion people. They're going to die, and most of them are going to hell. Through the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. And when you look up that word in the Greek, because I speak Greek almost fluently. No, not really. I speak Pidgin Greek. It's kind of a little bit different. Actually, it's just Pidgin. This word beast can also be translated into virus. How's that? I mean, are we not very familiar with viruses today? Except these viruses, to me, right back here, with all these people dying, is going to be even worse. I mean, the coronavirus, they're saying you really, it's like your chance of survival of getting it is 99.9, unless you have certain underlying conditions, or the older people, then it's less than that. But I think the lowest is even 98%. But this right here, I mean, there's going to be 2 billion people die. The Antichrist is coming. War is coming. Devastation is coming. Death is coming. And what follows death is hell. No soul sleep, death, and then hell. Then the 5th seal. When he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God. These are the martyrs, and for the testimony which they held. Some believe that this is all the martyrs that had ever died. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell in the earth? It says there, the blood of them, when he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain. Under the altar. The altar is the place where the sacrifice was made. And the blood dripped there. It flowed at the bottom of the altar. That's where these martyrs are. How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou now judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto them, every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest for a little season until their fellow servants, there's going to be more, also, and their brethren that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. There's going to be more martyrs to come. There may be many martyrs many people are going to be martyred very soon in Afghanistan. Some already have. Those that are taking a stand for their faith. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe we'll get that honor and the privilege of taking a stand for our faith that will cost our life. Right now, sometimes it's just maybe you get opposition, or people get upset, or don't want to hear what you got to say. There might be a day where it may cost us our life. And there have been many that have been put to death already. And they're crying, how long? The Antichrist is going to destroy all those who do not take the mark. By the way, I hope everyone in this room is saved. I hope everyone in this room, when the rapture takes place, you're going to be raptured. But if not, if you are left behind, do not, for any reason or circumstance, take the mark. Probably at the beginning of the tribulation, the mark will be voluntary, and then it will be mandatory. We've preached on this for years, and now we're seeing something that's mandatory right now. And it's not the mark, don't get me wrong. But the stage is being set for I guess you could say, for the infrastructure to be there. Please don't go around saying the vaccine is. We got enough things going on, and someone to start saying that. The mark is not some medicine or something like that. It is a mark. It's the mark of the beast. 666. And if someone asks you if it's a mark, tell them, no, it is not. That's ridiculous. But it's the mark of the beast will be voluntary probably at first, and it's going to be mandatory. And those that do not take the mark will not be allowed to do business, purchase food, or do anything. They'll be starved, they'll be hunted down, they'll be tortured, and they will be killed. Revelation chapter 13, verse 15 through 18 speaks about it. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. We are already being accustomed to this right now. Beep. Right? How many have had somebody, you go to a restaurant and go, okay, I got to take your temperature. Beep. It's a condition. The conditions, and it's also part of the infrastructure that's being set up. When you go to pay for your food now, it's just pretty soon. Before it was right, then now it's just this now, right? Beep, yeah. Yep. Beep. Then they're going to say, what if people lose their card? Right. Put everything over here. Then pretty soon it's going to be this. Beep. The technology is there. I'm not saying if you have a card or that's the mark of the beast. It is going to be after we are raptured. But I'm just saying after the rapture occurs, if you are left behind or if you know someone who's not saved, let them know and tell them, please, no matter what happens, do not take them. Once you take the mark of the beast, you're going to hell. That's it. There's no coming back after that.
You'll know it though, right?
Yes. Yeah. You have a choice to take it. I believe. Yeah.
Knowing I'm taking the mark.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. I believe it's a choice. If it wasn't, then, I mean, they would have deceived all these people into secretly taking it. But these people are taking a stand and not taking it. That's why they're forcing them to. It says, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. But if and I'm wondering, why would someone want to take, like if they said, okay, you want to take the mark? Yeah, I want to take the mark. Okay, where do you want it? You want it in your hand or your forehead? Why would they want it in? I want it in my forehead. Then I thought, well, maybe it's because some people don't have a hand, maybe. Or maybe it's the people that, yeah, you always have a head. That's the way you get ahead in life. And that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So the altar is a place that the blood of the sacrifice would flow. That's where the souls of the martyrs are. These souls in heaven cry out for vengeance. They are crying out to God to revenge their blood. When God's people are persecuted, he will set it right one day. It's not wrong that they cry to him out for vengeance. He promised to do so from the blood of Abel that cried out from the ground for vengeance in Genesis chapter 4, as did the blood of the unavenged murders in the land of Israel. Their blood cried out from the ground. These saints are instructed to wait. How long will they have to wait? Well, there's going to be more that are going to be martyred. And when all those that are martyred, then at that point, then God will take revenge. It's in his timing. Then the sixth seal. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair. And the sun and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the dens of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Even at that point, they still didn't cry out to him for salvation. So the sixth seal, the great earthquake, the sun becomes black, the moon becomes like blood, the stars seem to be falling because of the earthquake. So up until this point, we see that the judgments have been coming down from God through mankind, war, famine, disease, death, and martyrdom. But now we see God send an extremely powerful earthquake. The judgments are coming straight from the throne from God. The coming storm. The storm was approaching, as John saw when he looked at him that sat on the throne. And now the storm is upon the earth. Zephaniah chapter 1 verse 14 through 16 says, the great day of the Lord is near. It is near and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble, and a day of distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and an alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. Joel chapter 2 verse 10 and 11. The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great, for he is strong and executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible. Who can abide it? This is known as a day of the Lord, a time period of judgment. And that's what's going on. We see that some of this could even be describing a nuclear war. And the world tries to hide from the wrath of God. Rather than receive him, they just want to hide from him. Remember Adam in the garden? He's trying to hide. We as believers are promised that we will be delivered from the wrath to come. We won't be here. We won't be on earth at this time. 1 Thessalonians 1:10 says, and to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, even Jesus, which delivered us from the wrath to come. As it says there. It says, for the great day of his wrath is come. Who shall be able to stand? 1 Thessalonians 5:9, for God hath not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. Only the believer can stand before this great judgment, the one who is justified by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. Look at Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, and you'll see here in Matthew chapter 24, when Jesus is talking about the end times, you'll see these horses. Matthew chapter 24. Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another, that there shall be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. That's what horse? That's the white horse, the Antichrist. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Who's that? What horse is that? That's the red horse, right? See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And then it says, there shall be famines. What horse is that? That's the black horse, famine, with the scales. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. These are the beginning of sorrow, and they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you. There's going to be many that are dead. And we see there, of course, the last horse, the pale horse of death, and we see, of course, also the seals that are open, the martyrs, and we, of course, already seen in here the earthquakes. So Jesus is already telling them what's going to happen in Revelation chapter 6, right here in Matthew chapter 24. Now, is this talking to the church, Matthew chapter 24? Is Matthew 24, if you're thinking this is talking about the sixth seal, is this chapter talking about the church and getting us ready for the rapture? No. This is talking to the Jews that are going through the tribulation period, that need to know this. Who's going to be deceived is if someone came today and said, I am the Messiah, is anybody in this room going to be thinking, I wonder if that's the Messiah? No. Who is looking for the Messiah? The Jews. This is for the Jews to know. Many have been confused. That's why there's a lot of mid-tribbers, because Matthew 24 has been taught wrong by a lot of people. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. There's many during the tribulation period, they cannot receive the mark. They've got to endure to the end. And if they don't receive the mark and they get their head chopped off, that's fine, because they go to heaven. Do not receive the mark if you are not raptured, or if you know someone that's not saved, tell them, do not receive the mark under any circumstances. Is the vaccine a mark? No. But during the tribulation period, there is going to be a mark. And if you don't take it, you can't buy or sell. This time period is coming. And we as believers need to warn the lost world. Revelation chapter 6. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? With heads bowed and eyes closed.